And we're back with another preview. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us again. We already dropped the pod earlier, so if you didn't have a chance to get a listen on our thoughts about Palace, which it was a tough game, very tough game, but we kind of broke it down as best as we could. And I'm joined today by Z. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, not too bad. And we're also joined by a guest, Samuel. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So maybe because Samuel, you weren't on us when we broke down the pod, maybe we can just have like a little quick 5 minute your view on the Palace game. If I basically had to summarize what our thoughts as a collective were, very angry, annoyed at the structure,
Yeah.
and while individuals definitely didn't help their case, we didn't give the team the best game plan to execute a win. And so this needs to change for Villa. Agree?
Yeah. To be fair, I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. I think the the midfield three, although I wanted El Neni to start, when I did see it at the time, I thought with Zaha out, maybe we can still get away with it, and I wasn't too concerned with the structure at first, as long as El Neni could still come on. And then I got really annoyed when I saw Saka had to come off, and we were bringing on a midfielder, and it was Lokonga instead of El Neni. And I do like Sambi, so I don't want to seem like it's something against him personally, but I really didn't understand that. So structure wise, I would have liked El Neni to come on and then switch to more of a 4-2-3-1, because Partey was left too isolated for the whole game, including obviously with the Benteke goal. And then after that, everything else, I was just annoyed as you guys, and I I wasn't happy with even. Obviously, I'm glad we got a point in the end, but it was really bittersweet to take at the end, because I did like how we looked when we opened up. I thought Palace weren't even that great as well. I thought like the game was there for the taking, but Arteta alluded to the fact that he saw the team sit back too much after we scored, and then that invited too much pressure.
Mhm.
And I would have liked something from a substitution perspective that could have changed that, which I think El Neni could have. And I also would have liked to see a different attitude come out in the second half, because you saw the way the game was going in the last 15, 20 minutes in the first half. So to keep it much the same and to not see anything from the lads that seem to suggest that we need to ramp it up again and at least come out in the first 20 minutes of the second half the same way we did the first. It was really, really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative of the game, I think everyone was pretty just disappointed about. Basically, I sent a tweet out kind of yesterday where I feel as though Mikel, he has an issue with replacing attacking and defensive patterns when one of his spine goes missing. So I think back to Villarreal last year, and the impact of no Kieran Tierney or somebody very crucial to his structure. He really struggles to replicate those same patterns with less quality players, and he typically, in my opinion, thinks he's too smart for his own good, and he does analysis by paralysis. So what I mean by that is, he thinks he's smart enough to make a different tactic on the spot, where I think simply just repeating what you've already done that's successful is the way to go. I mean, Z, do you think moving towards Villa, let's say we were to keep Partey in terms of these tactics, would your prediction and your projection of the game be very different as opposed to simply just going back to our tried and trusted pivot that we saw more shades of in the second half, to be fair? But do you think this game really hinges on where will Mikel go? Is it more of the same in recent times, or will we revert back to what made us successful?
I mean, to be fair, look, he cannot dare to go but back to the way we played against Crystal Palace or against Brighton. I feel like those two games and the way he set up were probably one of his lowest points of his managerial career. And I think he probably will reflect back on those and will be like, why did I even set my team up the way I did in those games? So I feel like, you know what, we need to revert back to the way we did against Spurs, even if it means Xhaka's not there. Replace him with the best possible replacement, which is El Neni, and just simplify the team, to simplify the structure and simplify the roles on the pitch for these players, because that's what we need to do in order to flourish. I feel like these players are very smart. They're very gifted, but once you start overcomplicating things, these players will end up being confused. And we saw that against Crystal Palace when Emil Smith Rowe and Odegaard kept on going up to the manager because their roles weren't specified enough. Their roles weren't explained enough to the players, to the extent that these players just ended up doing, like, they weren't pressing enough, they weren't passing the way they should have, and it just became a game of just like gung ho. I just really didn't know what watching Palace. Honestly, I feel like what we need to do now, and it might sound deluded, but we have to actually build on the momentum that from the goal that we scored against Crystal Palace, and just start quickly against Villa and blow them away in the first 15-20 minutes, just like we did against Spurs, and then just play normally, because I feel like that's what we are at the moment. That's the kind of team we are. We're good in bursts, and until we start refining the way we play, we will be that team continuously. But that's how I feel like how we should address the Villa game.
Yeah, bro. Like, I think I wanted to read out one quote from his press conference in terms of he basically was asked on what the disappointing aspects of the game were, and his response was, a lack of composure to get a hold of the ball, to understand what we had to do, and to show more quality. We started to defend something after scoring a goal, and that's what I don't like to see. We started to play forwards or not play forwards. We kept the ball in the wrong areas, and we put ourselves in trouble. That's the period I didn't like. I think we got better in the second half, and the start was better when we had some control, but we just gave goals away. And I think he's spot on. Even in our review podcast, mate, like we were saying, he saw the problems. It's not as though I think I really liked what he was angry about, and I know maybe that's reaching, but any manager for me that makes a mistake, I think when they're asked what you think went wrong, for me, if they kind of gloss over the very glaring mistake that they made, I wouldn't be happy with. And I think he basically talked about the big points. Retreating back into a defensive block after scoring was not an instruction from him. And I don't think it ever really has been, if I'm really being honest. Like, he wants to press, but I don't think the players can do it. And the biggest question, maybe I'll go to Samuel now in terms of just, what we think we might do in terms of lineups. Villa have a really good team. They play with, twin strikers. They've got some good guys in midfield, McGinn, Buendia, energy in the midfield. I think Leon Bailey is also fit. So when you're looking at it, they're a dangerous team. But how do you think Mikel will kind of combat really the difference where Crystal Palace didn't necessarily have a great midfield, right? Without Zaha and bar Conor Gallagher, they were just so poor technically, that they didn't really take advantage of the space that we gave them. I think Villa will, especially with Buendia and McGinn. How do you think we change things up, or do we stay the same, in your opinion?
I think Partey as a lone six against Villa would probably be suicide. I think John McGinn is really, really good at pressing the ball, really good at pressing his midfielders. Douglas Luiz can sweep up in behind, but they've been also playing like with three at the back recently, so they can afford to be a bit higher up. At least the midfielders push on a bit more and can press higher up the pitch. So if we've seen what we've seen with Partey as a lone six, and really no one in terms of the attacking midfielders that are next to him really being the gaps really being too wide, I think he would, it would be much the same as the way Palace scored their goals, or at least scored the first one with Benteke. You would just see that over and over again. So for me, I think Partey lone six would be suicide. I don't like it, to be honest, in general, but I think if if you're coming up maybe against a really lower league side, then I think it can be fine. Against Villa, against Palace, it's not ideal, and I'd say even less so with Villa, because I really do like the midfield security that they have.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when you look across their team, like you said, they were playing mainly with like a back three, right? And they basically have Buendia in the hole with their twin strikers up top, and they play basically Matty Cash and Matt Target kind of as their wing
Yeah,
backs essentially. And I think Leon Bailey, even though that he's fit, in terms of an attacking talent, they may take off a striker to add him, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think they're going to look to press us, especially with Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins. And of course, they've seen basically what happens when you press us and we don't handle the press very well. We haven't in the last two games. I think mainly that's more due to I think our midfield structure as opposed to something else. But really, this one, I think that we're going to receive a press from their twin strikers. And I think
definitely.
that the space is going to be along the left-hand side or our right. Again, ironically, I think this was very much the case with Palace. I think they're very similar teams where they are. I think Villa are just a little bit better echelon of a technique and also forwards, and so they're going to have a lot more output. Yeah, guys, it's just a sweater. But in terms of where the openings will lie, I think Matt Target and Tyrone Mings, like that channel, we've got to attack it because I think on the right, they've got John McGinn, who's a very industrious kind of eight. They got Matty Cash, who defensively is really strong, as well as Konza. And so I think Danny Ings as well and Ollie Watkins, like they're always going to run back, But I think along their right hand side, they're a lot stronger defensively. Twanzebe, who kind of sits in the middle of their back three, he also kind of grew up more along as a right center back. So just naturally, he will tend towards the right. So I think Villa will be defensively very strong on the right. And I think that, that's tough in terms of who we have that's very good on the left. But I think the best way that you can hit them is down the right. And so for me, Z, I'm going to go to you. It really is the question or the man of the hour, right wing. If the right side for us, Villa's left, is going to be the weakest, just like Palace. Who starts at right wing? So let's play the scenario that Saka's not fit first, and then maybe we'll do when Saka is fit, and if that changes. But let's say Saka isn't fit. How do we attack that space? Because I think that's where we're going to find joy, as opposed to the left, which has again Konza, McGinn, Matty Cash down that side. So I'll go to Z first. What about you, mate? Who do we go on the right to take advantage of this?
I mean, look, if I'm going with my heart, I feel like we're gonna go with Pepe on the right. But for me, for sure, like what I would do personally would play. I'd personally play Martinelli on the right, purely because it's something that we need something different on the right. Right now, we need someone that can obviously also offer a goal threat, but someone that is also that's a live wire on the right. He's technically very secure as well, and he's able to dribble in tight spaces, something that Pepe is not able to do, even though he has all the time and space in the world. And I feel like that's something that Pepe is one of the biggest reasons why I really, really dislike Pepe when there's no time and space. He's just one of the worst players to watch, especially live, and he's not technically secure at all. And for us to actually, attack down Villa's wing, we need someone like Martinelli on the right. If Saka's not playing, it's really essential for us to even replace Saka's absence for sure.
Yeah, mate. Like I think the tough thing for me, right, is when you have a back three like what Villa do, and they basically have like a 3-4-1-2. But when they're out of possession, it's that big low block, a 5-4-1, right? And my biggest fear is how is Pepe against low blocks in terms of his technical security? I'm not confident, and I don't want to basically have a repeat of the Palace performance where I think people it's not so much hating Pepe, but let's go with the idea that the system doesn't create chances for our forwards. I think there's reasons for that, but let's accept that as a premise. Okay, who at the Palace game had the most touches in the final third? Nicolas Pepe. In terms of Nicolas Pepe, what did he do with the ball, having the most touches in a dysfunctional system? He lost possession 22 times. He was 3 for 15 on duels, and he was 1 for 6 on take-ons. And so for me, the stuff that he does with the ball hasn't been consistent. And so if you're going to face a low block, we can't lose possession. We need to gain control again. So for me, if we've already isolated that the left-hand side is there, and we've already said that let's assume Saka's not starting, right? And what would you do, Samuel, in terms of would you agree with having Martinelli kind of as your right wing? Maybe Yo-Yo here is saying not to start Tomiyasu as a right back. Would you do anything different? Would you change the right back,
I
or
don't
would
know.
you match them up? What would you do?
I don't know what our right back options are, but to be honest, I'm after seeing Tomiyasu, I'm not willing to go back to anything unless he's injured, to be honest, because I have enjoyed watching him. So I would keep Tomiyasu there, but obviously at the same time he's not the most. He's better defensively, so he's not. Even though he's still sound going forward, he's not the most attacking or overlapping right back. And I would like, for that reason as well, like Z said, I think Martinelli would be a good option to almost have an outlet that can run in behind, because when we're playing out from the back, then they will be more of a 5-4-1 and it will be a low block, and maybe there won't be a lot of space in behind. But I do think that if we catch them on the counter attack, I do like the idea of Aubameyang and Martinelli maybe running down the channels, coming in into space with Lacazette dropping deeper, because Lacazette, I do think, has warranted a start based on his cameo. So if it was up to me, I'd probably switch up and go with Aubameyang left wing, Martinelli right wing, and Lacazette hopefully in the 9, but also supporting the midfield, dropping in would probably be my best bet.
Yeah, for sure. So I think what it is for me, guys, is the first change is I want Thomas Partey to play higher up in midfield. I'm going to repeat. Thomas Partey cannot be a lone 6. This absolutely can't happen. And so for me, the implications of having that, whether that's Lokonga, look, I prefer Mohamed El Neni because I feel that he tracks runs a lot more. I don't think Lokonga is defensively aware enough, and I don't think he scans properly enough yet. And he vacates his zone. So for me, I think it's dangerous to play with him, but I would choose El Neni. But regardless, whether it's El Neni, Lokonga, whatever personnel you choose, they have to be the one anchoring and splitting the center backs. Now, I actually would play with Tomiyasu. I'd keep him deep in terms, because we play a 3-2-5, right? And so I would definitely keep Tomiyasu deep. But if you're going to push Partey higher up, he's able to control that right-hand side defensively, right? So for me, I actually think the Martinelli decision is a lot of logic from you guys. I would go with that. And I think the reason is because the right side would be a lot more isolated in this system. And as a touchline winger, Martinelli is a lot more decisive in the final third. And so for me, the biggest difference is that Partey would actually sit up there and he would be able to control defensively. And Martinelli, when he plays for right wing for the Olympic squad at Brazil, he was there on the right wing, kind of making inside out runs. And so he was very effective there. And I think playing Lacazette, I agree with you guys, that's going to be the play, particularly after his cameo. But when you play Lacazette, you're attacking mid, it has to be Emile Smith-Rowe for me. It cannot be Odegaard. And that's because Lacazette is a small combination type player, and he needs somebody to kind of combine with. And so him and ESR would be excellent in terms of kind of creating overload centrally, but we need to take kind of control with wing forwards. So for me, especially if I know that, Tyrone Mings in that left-hand channel, I need a runner in there that I know is going to attack the space. I think the biggest frustration I've got with Pepe right now is it's so predictable that he's going to cut in on his left foot and go. Whereas Martinelli, for me, can go in or out. He won't stay. He'll cross with both feet. He's happy to take you on the outside. And so he's also somebody that I trust touchline a lot more than Nicolas Pepe. So what do I mean by that? If in this instant, we're basically going to have our right winger be a lot more wide, who do you trust to keep a hold of the ball and still be influential? Because both of these players, Pepe and Martinelli, they're low touch players. I think we can all agree, right? Who do you trust essentially to make more of an impact? And so for me, Martinelli and Pepe, they're both wing forwards. So they both meet the balance of front line. They meet that criteria, right? They're going to have both Thomas Partey behind them. right? I mean, we're trying to have Thomas Partey play higher up. So then it
Yeah.
basically comes into who's better in a low block for you, Pepe or Martinelli, and who finds space more. So I'll maybe ask that question to you, Z. Like, are you still Martinelli? I'm trying to give the case maybe poorly for Pepe, but
I mean, look, the more I'm listening to you is the more I'm just getting a picture in my head. Like, he would be the most perfect player to play against
yeah,
Villa, and the more you speak, the more I see Pepe holding bench, and that's me being as serious as possible, and that's purely down to the fact that obviously I really really worry about his technical security, and
yeah.
he doesn't do enough for me to get past the man. And like, for me, one thing that I noticed, and something that I actually praised him for last season, was his intensity in his pressing. He doesn't seem to press anymore. He's not pressing as intensely, and it just almost feels like he's become like a lot more lethargic in his running, and that's kind of the reason why I got so frustrated with his
He ruined our
performance
press,
against.
though,
Yeah,
right? See, like,
he did, and it was so disorganized because you could see, despite us not being able to win the second balls, everybody else was actually trying to press, but he was the one player out of the entire team that was half running and half walking, and that is something that can't go on. And I hope Arteta, once he starts analyzing the game, he notices that from Pepe, and he speaks to him, because that it kind of did ruin like a lot of the press that we should have done as a team together. But this is why I feel like someone like Martinelli would be essential for us against Villa. It will be something different, something that Villa haven't experienced before as well from Arsenal. Because most of the time when we played them, we played basically the players, where we pass ball to feet from, like for example Willian. There
yeah,
wasn't a player that we can pass the ball and pass the ball over the last man, and a player can run into it like an outlet that Martinelli is. We haven't played like that against Villa for a long time, and I feel like we need to do that. We need to give them something different, something else to think about, and just see, because I don't feel like Villa is the most strong defensively at all. I think where they can hurt us is in transition, and that's where I worry about. But if Arteta goes back to his basics, makes us as compact as ever in midfield, then look, we cannot worry about that. We can just worry about how we're going to hurt their defense, and I think that's what's more important.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest like Martinelli has benefits both ways, right? Like in terms of if we're going to enact a press, he's a far better pressing agent, and
Correct.
even though I like him better off of the left, his role on the right is what this system needs, especially if you're going to not have Saka, right? Like if you're not going to have Saka and your right wing is going to be touchline, because when you have Lacazette and ESR inside, I don't think what people understand is that he's not going to be on the inside channel. It's not going to be like Palace where ESR could overload, right? When Lacazette comes in, those two are going to be in the center. So Pepe doesn't have room to be on the inside. The right wing will be touchline. So then the question becomes, okay, let's put it to kind of the group. Like, who do you think operates better touchline, Pepe or Martinelli? And for me, the logical choice is Martinelli. And it's also there because of the press. I think, look, Villa have had a blueprint from Brighton and Palace about if you press Arsenal, and look, we gave it easy to them with our spaces in midfield, right? But if you press us, we don't like it. Brentford have done it. Tons of teams have done it. We don't like being pressed, right? For me, the best way to combat a press is to press, right? And especially at home. And I think the one thing that I do give a lot of credit to Lacazette is when he came on, he gave energy. And the biggest issue I had with Palace and why I was so angry was how passive the players were. Martinelli's not passive. Pepe, I can label that criticism that he's a little bit passive. If I'm looking at, Partey and Elneny, what I really like is those aren't passive players. You can doubt the quality and the progression of one, but those guys will step and they will press. I just want runners in this team. I want to see us run. I want to see us take the fight to them and not give them a chance to get back in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's what's more important, because, like I keep on saying, the last time when we played Villa, we had those plays where we had to pass the ball to the feet, and he wasn't really stretching Villa at any points of the game. And if you look at Villa, they have very explosive and athletic players, and that's bread and butter for them, and we need to give them something different. And now we do have the players. We've got Martinelli, we've got Aubameyang, who's going to back on form, and and we've got Emil Smith Rowe as well, who we didn't have in the home game last season. So it's going to be really important, and I hope like all these players just use that momentum that we had in the last few minutes, man. It's really, really important, and we're so lucky that the game was literally just 3 days ago.
And again, mate, it's not even about adapting, because I think, yeah, you had to worry if he gets forced wide and if he can adapt to the right. Mate, like, he played that role for Brazil. That's actually the role he plays for Brazil all the time, a touchline right winger. And although we haven't seen it, he's actually played very well for Brazil, and that's how he's gone through the ranks. So he definitely can do it. He definitely adapts to it. And I think if I had a gun to my head, who do I like wide? Because we're going to force the right wing wide. It's just unfortunately how this team is going to set up without Saka, and with mainly Lacazette. Lacazette's impact on the starting 11 is that centrally you've got two players, right? And we've talked a lot about this in the half space, whether it's our left wing or whatnot. But I think the change, if you're going to have Lacazette drop, Oba is going to go a lot higher up, right? And Lacazette and ESR are going to be your two backboard people inside. So the wingers are going to start wide and come in. This is how we're going to build. So that's really the question. But I'll go to you, Samuel. Let's maybe go through lineups really quickly. Like, what is your ideal lineup, keeping in mind that Villa play with the back three? They're likely to probably do the lineup I listed before. So just to review, that's probably going to be Konza, Twanzebe, and Tyrone Mings. And then they're going to probably have Matty Cash, I'd assume John McGinn, and then Douglas Luiz, and then Target. And then up top, they're going to have Buendia in the hole with Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings. They're probably going to try to press us. They saw how successful it was. How do you respond if you were Mikel Arteta? Let's put that up to you.
If I was Mikel, yeah, I would go for more of a 4-2-3-1 off the ball, with the same back five as we have played, El Neni and Partey. So El Neni basically replacing the Xhaka role, going back to something that was closer to our Spurs game in terms of roles. And then, as I said, Martinelli on the right wing. I really don't see it happening, to be honest. I don't see him dropping Pepe, but I would go with Martinelli on the right wing, Aubameyang left wing, Smith Rowe behind Laka, in more of like a 4-2-3-1, but a 3-2-5 once with Tomiyasu tucking in, because we don't need him offensively too much with if we just have like runners behind once Lacazette drops deep, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the big thing, I want to push Oba inside, so I want Tierney high and wide. So if you're going to have, so if you really break down that 3-2-5, because I completely agree with you, Sam, exactly your personnel as well. Like we both want El Neni. But when you have a 3-2-5, right, the big thing is, for me, one of the fullbacks is going to occupy the channels. We don't have both fullbacks occupying the channels, right? So that's also why the right wing will be touchline, like just 100%, like I know it. And I think Tierney needs, look, he's out of form himself. I think he wasn't helped playing deeper against Palace, 100%. So for me, I'm totally on board with your system, and that's how I would do. I would also press very quickly from the start, get the fans on track, and I wouldn't let off too.
Definitely. I think that the pressing is the big thing as well with me, because as you guys mentioned already, Pepe isn't the guy that is going to press. And if you're playing Martinelli and Aubameyang, who both are low touch players, realistically, even if we play out from the back, it might not always work out in our favor, in terms of you really want them to get the ball as high up the pitch as possible, because as you mentioned, like in possession, those guys aren't the guys that you don't want Aubameyang or Martinelli dribbling too much, I would say, like just with the ball trying to make something happen. So if you do have the option to win the ball higher up, and then usually I don't like Aubameyang on the left wing, but I was impressed with his pressing against Palace. And
he was
there's
our
a
best
stat
presser,
out there. Yeah,
right?
no, by far. And the stat obviously is that Lacazette had more touches in the box, and I think Aubameyang he had a really good performance, even though he wasn't really in the box. So if maybe I would be a bit more hesitant if he was showing signs of maybe what he did last season a bit, in terms of like the pressing. Physically, he just wasn't there. But when I saw that performance, and then I saw Lacazette come on as well, and the way that they can link up together, then to me it has to be that front three, and I have less reservations about playing Oba on the left wing.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think just because of their cameos, how they work together, and the fact this is at home, I think that's huge for me. I wouldn't be playing this if it was away. I don't think Lacazette plays the same way when he's away. So, Yo-Yo, if you could ask that question, I don't really understand. So Odegaard sits too. I mean, he was asked to sit. He didn't really sit. So maybe if you could just specify that question a little bit more. I'm not having Odegaard in this lineup. I think he was very, very poor. I think he needs a rest. I don't think he played well. Even if the role didn't suit him, I think the way he ghosted the physical challenge was really, really poor for me. I mean, Mikel did not give Odegaard the best role 100%. That's facts. But the way he stayed higher up and hid with Aubameyang was completely the reason Gallagher got so much space and time. And I know that wasn't an instruction, because when we had Burnley, the tactic was completely the opposite. They were much more in a pivot, and Odegaard didn't do that. So there was issues,
and
but
Villa's
I think he played
midfielders
poor.
are no joke. Like in terms of their intensity, in terms of the way they can run around the pitch. Douglas Luiz and McGinn are right up there.
100%.
So we can't afford. I don't want to call Odegaard a passenger because it sounds harsh, but we can't afford
He's
someone
poor in
who.
transition. That's very fair.
Yeah, and we can't afford anyone who's just shy to back out of the physicality of it, because they will give us a real physical challenge. Like these guys, if you look at them, Douglas Luiz, McGinn, and then you have like Ollie Watkins and Ings. These guys are like really good athletes. So we need athletes. Do you know what I mean? And Odegaard is a technical player who lacks the athleticism. So for me, yeah, I can't see him. I can't see him starting.
Yeah, mate. I mean, neither can I. So I think I'm kind of on board with that. And like you said, in terms of the eights, I mean, I'll go to Z maybe to just wrap up in terms of what he thinks how the game will go. Do you have any changes subs wise? And then we'll get Chris's thoughts too. But are you happy with the lineup formation, the tactics that we're sitting here? Like, are me and Samuel off, or are you on board?
No, I mean, look, you guys, we're all on the same wavelength. I think I keep on bringing back the blueprint, and I think the blueprint we need to copy is the one against Spurs. We need to start quick, and we need to. When I mean start quick, it means building the momentum for and hit them like for 3 or 2 in the first 15-20 minutes. And I feel like that's what we need to do to blow those teams out of the water, because I feel like, again, we're a good team in bursts, and I think that's what we can maintain at this moment of time. So that's what we need to do. And genuinely, like I'm not just saying this. I feel like there is a defense to be hurt, for Villa. Like they're not the most strongest defensively, and Wolves last week did them dirty, like absolutely dirty. And I
They
feel like
struggled to hold on to their leads. That's a critique that they've had all season, right?
yeah,
In many of they do go up quite early, and
yeah,
they start strong. We start strong, but they actually end poorly in general.
yeah. No, and to answer that comment, where we say we start quick in every match, we do, but the fact is we don't really score goals, apart from the game against Spurs. I don't think there was a point where we actually capitalized on our quick start, and that's something we need to do, because I remember, like, back in the day, like, we used to start very quickly as well, and we used to blow those teams out of the water, like 2-0, 3-0 in the first 15-20 minutes. And if that's the way you want your games to go, then so be it. But that means you capitalize on the chances that you create in those first 15-20 minutes, and I think that's what we need to do. And there's no better team to do it against Villa, because I really need to see a win against them, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm going to go to Chris. Mate, what do you think on Villa? So essentially, I'll just give you a recap of what we're saying.
On who? On Villa, okay.
Yeah, the way we play it back three, we're kind of on board with the Martinelli right wing. Are you against us? Are you for us?
I posted on the timeline, I wanted Martinelli right. If Saka's not gonna play, then Martinelli right wing, Emil on the 10, and then Oba and Laka probably start. I think. But yeah,
What about Villa in terms of their weak points? Are you on board with their left-hand side or our right again being the ploy that we have to exploit? Or do you see another weakness that we haven't seen?
Well, in general, more time they do attack down their left. They vary, but like Bailey has been a threat when they're going down the left. Even Buendia, when he moved over to the left, at times they go down the left, so they leave space in behind. And you have McGinn, who is probably one of their best pressers off the ball, because Ings and Watkins are very good at that as well. But McGinn on the right is one of the
McGinn
best
is
pressers
my
off the ball.
most underrated midfielder in the league. I love McGinn.
Same.
So
Honestly, I think he would be an underrated option when we sell Xhaka. I'm not saying I think for our level as a club we should be aiming higher, but I do think he could do that Xhaka role immensely well. To be honest,
I think
he's a
he'll be like
versatile.
a box to box with proper goal scoring potential. Like you see it with Scotland, he has more license to shoot, and he's got very good ball striking. So,
And 2 seasons ago, he was a lot higher up, right? Like I think in this 3, he is more of like him and Luis are like the police dogs. They let their kind of wingers and Buendia and their strikers do the business, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's Leon Bailey, but they just shuttle around, put out fires. But in your opinion, like Chris, I'll stick with you here. Do you think that they go high press and they press us? Like how would you set us up? Like are you a fan of how we've set up in terms of the pivot with Martinelli right wing and a high press? Like are you on board me to press with the press, or are we going to do something different?
I think they've pressed in every game probably, and the front two will press probably more than like, even if the manager says not to. It's just in them to press. So they will press. So our first phase will be important, but I'm confident with our build up that their press won't really affect us. It's just when we get into midfield
with the pivot though, right? Just a
whoever
caveat.
Arteta puts in there, because the goals that we conceded came from our pivot players losing the ball and dilly-dallying. So Partey's one was more in build-up, and the Congo's one was much higher up the pitch. But whoever he puts in that pivot is key for me because of how they press, because they press more shuttling from the right to the left. So we'll see. For me,
they got to get rid of it quickly. That's also why I went on Nenny. Like people say that he doesn't progress, but he gets rid of the ball. Like he doesn't like it. He's almost allergic to it. In fact, it can be a criticism of his. But I think in this case, it's the best thing. I don't need somebody holding onto the ball too much. Ainsley, Lukunga, like these are options that, okay, in theory you could put there and you could give them the same role, but these guys like to touch the ball and hold on to it. So I think maybe we'll just start with predictions, really, unless there's last minute burning stuff from people.
Also, another reason why I want Martinelli right wing is Mings, because Mings.
Yeah, we were saying
Mings
that earlier.
Frustrated quickly,
yeah.
And Martinelli's pressing frustrates any defender. And on the ball, he's their worst defender. Konsa's much more comfortable on the ball. So
and Target, I don't think is as great as Cash defensively.
He's not.
So there's space, and in a 3, there's always space in that corridor, right? So for me, the right wing is going to be the most important selection of this lineup, and I hate to really nitpick here, but it really is. And look, there could be a chance that Saka returns. I know we talked about it earlier in the pod, but there is a chance that he returns. It was just a slight knock, and I'll just tell you, like medically, there was no way he was going to train the next day. So that's kind of beyond the point. But there's very, very much a possibility he could get back. But I just thought it was better to do the convo if he isn't, because if Saka's available, I would assume all of us are Saka in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you know what? Let's move on to predictions if we can't. So Curran, he couldn't be here, but he's gone for a 1-0, cheeky 1-0 to the Arsenal, I think. And Z, mate, we'll start with you. What are you saying? What's the prediction?
Oh man, it's one of the games that I wouldn't want to make a prediction on, but I'm going 2-1.
2-1. So that's going to be a nail biter, I would assume.
Yeah, agreed.
Interesting. Samuel, how does Emmy return to the Emirates? Does he get a victory or not?
Oh man,
because it's going to be Martinez FC on the timeline, right?
Yeah, basically. I think, to be honest, I think it does have the potential to be a high-scoring game. I'm not going to go with a high-scoring prediction, but I do think it has that potential. But my prediction is based on, to be honest, whether Pepe starts or not. If he goes with the lineup that we suggested, then I would go for a 1-1 or maybe a 2-1 Arsenal. I would probably just say like a 1-1. But if Pepe starts, then I can see us losing 2-1. To be honest,
Interesting.
I don't want to predict. I don't want to predict a loss. So
you're going for
I
a
would
draw?
say, yeah, I'll just say 1-1. I'll just say 1-1. But it won't look good if Pepe starts, in my opinion.
Chris, do you want to handle this question? Why are you starting Martinelli? I mean, that was basically the pod. Sorry, Theo, I think you may have missed it. But Chris, do you want to answer that before you give your prediction?
For me, it's just anytime I've seen him this season, apart from that, the first 2 games, he's had like, mad impetus on the pitch. Like he even when he was poor, like he brings this like aura with him that is not matched by many in our team, and his pressing will be very important against Mings and Target, who are the worst 2 on the ball in their back four, and we need someone on the right who we can rely on to press and make better movement in behind and utilize the space that's actually there, because when Pepe plays in comparison to Saka or Martinelli, they use the space on the right a lot better, I think, and are more effective on the whole right hand side rather than in certain parts on the right. But yeah, like I just think Martinelli better than Pepe.
I think just really quickly to do it is we're playing a pivot with Partey a lot higher up, so he's going to have a little bit more defensive cover. But that inevitably makes the right wing in our system touchline. And so I don't think Pepe touchline against a back 3 is going to be great. I think that Martinelli is much better touchline. He played that role for Brazil at the Olympics, and he played it very, very well. I think, like you said, Chris, that half space channel, which is what we've talked about even earlier in the pod, was Mings and Target. That's where we're going to find a goal. And for me, I find Martinelli much more authoritative in how he attacks space. Also, when you have Lacazette come in deep, this is what we were saying earlier, was Lacazette and ESR are going to be your backboard strikers in the half space. It pushes the right wing touch line because we're going to have Tierney a lot higher up because we want Oba central, right? So if you're going to have a 3-2-5, Tierney is going to be one of the channels on the 5, and you're going to have basically Lacazette and ESR drop in, and Oba is going to want to be more along in the box. So absolutely, the right wing is going to be touch lined, and it basically comes down to that. Maybe we'll just go to you, Chris, about your prediction, because I think we've got the boys. So we've got a win, we've got a draw. What are you going to do? The most pessimistic one out of all of us, right?
Yeah, like pessimism just runs in my blood. For me, I don't know. I don't have a great feeling about the game. Just in general, like the way we've played and the way he's set up recently just hasn't impressed me. And going into the game, I think we'll concede. I don't want to, but I think 2-1 Arsenal. 3-1 Arsenal just because Z went 2-1.
Are you going to lock that in 100%?
Yeah, 3-1 Arsenal.
3-1.
Because Z went 2-1 and I just need points.
Yeah, interesting. Oh my God. So this game, it really relies on us having that pivot role change, doesn't it? Like it doesn't have to be El Neni, but we've talked so much on this pod about the right wing. It's going to be so important. What we do in the pivot is so important. Like I think even if I were to see Lokonga, I'm not going to worry, but I'm going to worry on how he's used, if that makes sense. We kind of talked about this in the pod that even if he plays, even though El Neni's my horse, I would absolutely want that pivot. So for me, I think I'll probably go with 2-1, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Z. Yeah. I don't think that we do not concede. I think we're going to be a lot closer in terms of our distances. I do think that he reverts back to type. I will say if he doesn't and he ignores what we said and we see Partey on an island, we could be in for an embarrassing loss. We could, 100%. So I hope that Mikel is a little bit humble in understanding the distances a lot more, because we can't give Villa this space, especially centrally. Not what they offer, and I don't think he will. But yeah, I think we do. I think we do concede, unfortunately, just because they're a pressing team and the way that we've been playing right now with our distances. I'm not confident that we get it 100% right. But I do think that we win. And there's something to be said that we don't lose, even though that we've come back. I think I'm with Yo-Yo in terms of it'll be the first victory about us going behind. Like, I think we might have Friday's going to be beautiful for agendas. We're going to see Martinez versus Rambo. We're basically going to see Never winning against Dean Smith. And we're essentially going to see Buendia versus ESR, Z. And I think I'll go. I think Martinelli will score. I'll be honest with you, and I think Oba will score. And for them, I see Watkins scoring. That guy, really underrated player. Villa are a team of underrated players. I'll be honest with you. Like, I really don't like
because they
their
had a
fans,
superstar.
but yeah, they are a team of underrated people. So yeah, guys in the chat box, check out your predictions. I think Lord Gunnar, you said 3-0. Wow, Jesus, clean sheet too. That'll be interesting. I think that'd be great if we could show that we don't concede to this Villa, especially after critiquing how we are in the press. But guys, any last minute thoughts? Like, are you worried about this game? We've basically got three wins and a draw. But how are you guys feeling for it?
I just hope the setup he goes for isn't what he's done the past 2 games, and I just hope he goes back to what got him his best win this season. So yeah, that's what I really want.
Last minute thoughts, Z, mate. What do you think? Look, I'm gonna be at the game, man. I just do not want to see a defeat. Look, against Palace, right? When we were trading, I almost just left my seat and I wanted to go home, and then obviously the goal happened. But I just don't want that feeling again. It's just horrendous. We have to see a win, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. Samuel, mate, what do you want to see? Final thoughts for the game?
Man, I think the reason I was so disappointed in the Palace game was because I was fearful of this Villa game. And from a performance standpoint, I just want to see like high energy, high pressing. I want to see if we have all the plays we listed out there, then there's really no excuses in terms of, like our press or just physically not seeming like, up for the fight in comparison to like certain players that we've mentioned who, physically weren't there against Palace. But yeah, man, I'm really not confident. And it's also just the fact that, I don't know, there's something about when we play like on a Monday or a Friday and there's like, we're the only game on, and there's just the added pressure. So I think, yeah, Villa are a good side, man. And I'm not confident. I find it hard to ever predict a loss. And it would be, I think it's made it more necessary to win. So it's added even more pressure because of the Palace game. When I was looking at like the run of fixtures that I was expecting Arteta to get results out of. So yeah, I think we can't lose in general in terms of after the Palace result, but I'm very, very nervous, I won't lie.
Yeah, so I think if I'm going to put on my coaching hat here, the big thing is I just don't want to see passengers. I think we were just far too passive just in general. I think after the 15th minute against Palace, we didn't string more than 3 passes together. I want that control. I want the spaces to be a lot tighter. I want us to fix this midfield island issue. And so, look, we've talked about the structure changes, but the biggest thing for me is I want runners. I want people up for the fight. And I think that's why our predicted lineup had fighters. It had people willing to press, willing to take the game on the front foot, something I don't think that this team did. The biggest thing is once we scored our goal, we all sat back. Pepe was very bad about sitting back, especially in the first half. If you look at those passing networks, he's with Tomiyasu. And so I took out those passengers. Odegaard and Pepe for me were very passenger in the game. And I basically replaced them in my mind with higher pressing, people willing to fight. And I think the idea that this is at home is good. It gives us a chance to, kind of give the fans something to cheer about. I think the fans were awesome too, by the way. I maybe Chris and Z, you guys can speak a little bit more, but I think the fans were unreal, at least through the TV. Like, I think they were willing the team on. Look, they hurt some players in Lukunga specifically, and some people, forcing them to maybe play forward. But I think in general, they didn't give up on the team,
I
even
think
going into the
Palace helped.
90th minute.
Palace fans helped that though, because Palace fans started getting loud after their first goal, and then so the Arsenal fans just started reacting off of the Palace energy, which made the fans like get a bit louder. And obviously at the end they got there was some unrest where you're going into like the 93rd minute, you're still 2-1 down, they're playing under the ball on the halfway line. So I understood why certain fans were angry, but like in general, it was a great atmosphere where I was sitting, at least. Other people were sitting not so much. Like some places there was fights between our fans, but where I was sitting, it was fine.
Awesome. So you know what, guys? I think that just about Z. Sorry, did you want to comment a little bit on that?
No, I mean, look, yeah, the fans were amazing, and I was sitting right next to the Villa fans. Actually, I'm not Villa, I mean Palace fans, and we had this one guy that was sitting next to us, and was just throwing the wanker sign the entire time. So it was kind of, they were really, really vile, and I think that was one of the biggest reasons why our fans were retaliating and chanting the way they were. And to be fair, we need to carry on because like the atmosphere is really good to be in. And again, like I said, when players like Martinelli come on, that kind of energy transmits to the player, and his energy transmits back to the fans, and it's something that we need, to continue on this season because we need the fans.
We need that connection, don't we, guys? Like, we need to
100%.
give belief in the team. I think the biggest thing when you look at this team, we've talked about the structure issues, but just to talk about off the field kind of factors, there was lack of confidence in this team. There were passengers in this team. And I think the best thing that you can do in these scenarios is give your boat or your sails wind, in a sense. And what that is pressing people that'll give you fight, desire, somebody to bite in the challenges. I don't want us losing our duels. I think the second balls are going to be critical to this game. I think Louise and McGinn are going to pounce and just spam crosses. To be honest, even Buendia, like they just fire in the channels. That's what they do. So for us, it's going to be very important to keep the distances tight, win your second balls, and for me, just dominate your space. Right? I think these are very simple things that we talk to players all the time about. If we do those things, we approach it the right way, I think we absolutely have the quality to kind of get our victory and kind of whitewash the Palace result in a sense. I think it'll be very good for both the fan base and us in general. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. I'll let the boys shout out their socials. So Samuel, mate, how about you?
Yeah, so my @ is there at @Amuel_7. Feel free to follow me. I'm on Twitter.
Yeah,
Awesome. And Z, can you want to shout your social?
Yeah, shit. My account is private Arsenal _Z. And yeah, I mean, shout out to Samuel, man, for joining last minute, man. Really appreciate the people that want to come on Ball Over Passion. Like, honestly, it's really humbling, and I really, really appreciate that.
Big up.
Yeah.
It's mad, lol, it's mad humble.
Unbelievable. We're gonna skip over that. Okay, Chris, shout out your socials. See, I'm host. I can switch this conversation. Go on.
Well, for me, pure CKK on Twitter.
Awesome. And you can find me
Colin.
at GeorgeV_AFC. Make sure that you guys follow us on Twitter at BotFooty. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. Let us know in the comments about stuff that we can improve, stuff that we can change. And yeah, stick with us, guys. I think quick turnaround Friday. So it's a weird one. That always is fun for Arsenal historically, isn't it? So we'll see how we do. We'll have a review pod coming for you guys. And we also have some upcoming content that I definitely want you guys to check out. Make sure you check us out on TikTok. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys after Villa, where hopefully it's 2-1 so that I can keep ahead in this prediction table.
3-1.
We shall see. Anyways, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us, and have a great day.
Peace.